Hello guys, and welcome back to another one of our Disney Lorcana deck tech videos. This one has been taking a little bit longer to get to you guys because I have been fully and truly refining this deck. This is the deck that I'm going to be playing for Rise of the Floodborn. If you guys remember our Dark Elsa video, that was the deck that I was playing for first chapter, and this deck plays very, very similarly to that deck. However, this deck is this is so much stronger. It's just a significantly better deck than that Dark Elsa deck. It is Cinderella Steel Yellow Songs. With that, we're just going to go ahead and get right into the deck. As we're going through, I'll talk about some of the gameplay choices as we're explaining these cards for what the point of the deck is, as well as some really cool combos that you can get to see in this deck. So we are a songs deck, so we're going to kick it off with some songs. So to start off with here, we've got Be Our Guest, a 2-ink inkable song that says, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put a character into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This entire deck is songs and characters. There are 6 cards total, 6 copies of cards, 2 different cards that are not songs and actions. So this is almost always going to be hitting. There's very, very, very few times that this doesn't hit, and every card in this deck we want to be seeing. So we want 4 copies of this card. This also synergizes incredibly well with, I'm sure you can guess, Ariel is also in this deck. This is incredible value, tempo value with Ariel in the deck as well. Next up, we've got 3 Zero to Hero. I was really, really big on this card when it first came out, and then I kept drawing it when I had no dudes in hand. Zero to Hero is very, very strong. However, it is uninkable, which is the only reason we're at 3. If this was inkable, I'd be playing it at 4. It is a 2-ink uninkable song that says, count the number of characters you have in play. You pay that amount of ink less for the next character you play this turn. Once we get to our Cinderellas, I'll show you some insane combo stuff you can do with this. This card is absolutely incredible. We are playing certain cards in this deck because of how strong Zero to Hero specifically is. This card is just absolutely insane. One of the best cards in the deck. However, it is uninkable, so we do only want 3 copies of it, and the things that it's playing are only matchup specific for how much value they get. Now, in most matchups, you're going to immediately win the game as soon as you play Zero to Hero. However, in some of them, Zero to Hero is basically useless because the things that you're playing, your opponents can answer. So that's another reason why we're playing 3. If your local metagame has some of those bigger threats that we'll go over later, you might want to think about cutting this to 2. Next up, we've got Strength of a Raging Fire. Strength of a Raging Fire, I see a lot of people playing Never Bother, or the new Frozen Steel song, who I can never remember the name of, that is on screen right now. I see a lot of people playing that instead of this. In this deck specifically, I like Strength of a Raging Fire way more. It being inkable is really nice because we're playing a lot of uninkables in this deck. And so we have ways to mitigate that, but we want to be able to play as many inkable cards as possible. They're both 3-ink songs. This one, however, says deal damage to chosen character equal to the number of characters you have in play, whereas the other one says deal 2 damage and draw a card. This deck does not struggle with card draw at all, and so I don't really need the draw card part of that effect, and I much rather have the ability to snipe something for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sometimes damage, especially in the mid to late game. I've had this thing do actually 11 damage, which is obviously way too much, but then it's a singable Dragonfire. The 2 damage from the other card, whose name I still can't remember, ends up getting blocked by a lot of the resist cards in Steel that this deck tends to have a problem with anyways, so I really like Strength of Raging Fire as a way to answer those cards. Speaking of answering cards that we have a problem dealing with, we have World's Greatest Criminal Mind. This is another 3-ink inkable song that says banish chosen character with 5 attack or more. This is in here almost specifically for the mirror match. The big Steel Cinderella is impossible to get rid of unless you have 7 guys on the board and shoot it with Strength of Raging Fire. But if your opponent's playing well, you don't have 7 guys on board because that Cinderella has killed them all. We have our own ways to kind of play around that to an extent, but this World's Greatest Criminal Mind, especially in the mirror match, basically if you're playing a mirror match and your opponent's running this and you're not, you've lost. It's so easy to see this card in that matchup, and if your opponent sticks a Cinderella and you can just blow it up with Criminal Mind, and you stick a Cinderella and they can't kill it, you win the game in like 2 or 3 turns because it quests for 3. This card is really, really incredible in the mirror match. It technically solves some of the problems with some of our other bad matchups, although most of the cards in the bad matchups do their thing when they enter play, and this doesn't really deal with them, though it gets them off board, which is nice. Next up, we've got 2 Part of Your World, 3-ink uninkable song. Return chosen character from your discard to your hand. This is very, very nice to loop with Ariel, so that you can play Ariel, get the song, quest with her, sing with her, maybe she dies, whatever, then play Part of Your World, bring her back, play her down, look at top 4, grab another song. Just really, really good value of keeping the pressure up. Also, into some of the more control decks, you can play down your Lilo, which we'll get to in a minute, then play Part of Your World, bring the Lilo back, put her back down, and then she's still good to keep questing. Part of Your World, only at 2, has just served so well in this deck. This is a mid-range deck. You do want to be kind of grinding your opponent out of the game with all of your infinite amounts of resource, and Part of Your World is a really big part of that. You don't want to see it all the time. You want to see about 1 or 2 a game, typically 1 a game. So that's why there's 2 copies in here, because the deck is not consistent enough to always see it if you're only playing 1 copy. However, at 2 copies, you're almost always going to be seeing exactly 1 copy, which is exactly where we want to be for this card. Next up, we've got 3 A Whole New World. Now, I only have 3 Whole New Worlds in here because there is other card draw options in the deck that I value a little bit more. It makes our deck a little less reliant on Ariel and allows me to not over-rely on things like Gaston, this new singer Gaston, which is not in this deck. Because of that, the Whole New World is still incredibly powerful. It's still probably one of the best steel songs in the game, but I found myself drawing too many of them in the early game where you just absolutely do not want this card. And then following up with our last song and our other best steel song, we've got Grab Your Sword. Grab Your Sword, as we all know, is our 5-mana uninkable sword in steel. Song in steel. It says deal 2 damage to each opposing character. Now, this card is insane. We all know that this card is insane. This card is very, very, very powerful, and the main reason that you win certain matchups. Against aggro decks, you play this, you win the game. Against the green-yellow decks, you play this, you kill all their value engines, you win the game. Against the purple decks that are trying to use their mana mims and stuff, you play this, you kill all their goat merlins, you kill their merlins, you kill everything else, especially with the extra damage you have. You're good to go. The only problem with Grab Your Sword is in the mirror match. Because your opponent is going to be on a lot of steel stuff that have resist 2, this does nothing to them. However, it does kill the Lilos. It puts a lot of damage on their bodyguards, allowing you to kill them. Grab Your Sword is always useful. It allows you to kill Gastons. If you play Lilo, like if you play a Lilo only turn 3 or turn 4 or something like that, your opponent plays a Gaston, you grab your sword, kill the Gaston. It allows you to kill the new small Queen of Hearts. It puts a bunch of damage on the big Queen of Hearts. It kills Raya's. It kills small Raya. It kills small Aladdin. It kills so many things. It kills the Queen, or small Queen. It kills so many of those things that your opponents want to be shifting on top of, or just puts damage on them so that then when they do shift on top, the big things are a lot easier to kill, especially with backup from Strength of Raging Fire or some other attackers or other cards that we'll see in a little bit. Grab Your Sword, for my money, is always going to be a 4 of. Even in the matchups where it's bad, it has good hits. It's just always great. It just allows you to get that little bit of extra damage on there. All right, so those are our items. Now onto our those are songs, sorry. Now onto our 2 non-songs, non-characters. First, we've got Beast Mirror. This card is in here as a reaction to control decks and the green-yellow discard deck. If you resolve a Beast Mirror against the green-yellow discard deck, you've won the game. Also, if you resolve Grab Your Sword, you've also won the game. Also, if you have Strength of Raging Fire on their Flynn or their Bell, you probably also win the game. This deck is very, very good against the green-yellow deck. But Beast Mirror is incredible. I had this in the original Dark Elsa deck, and it still does everything I ever wanted to. It is a 2 inkable item, so once you draw a second or third copy, you just throw it down. If it's not in a matchup, if it's against an aggro deck where you don't need to go long, you just throw it down from ink. That's totally fine. 2 inkable. It's an item, and it says tap it and 3 ink, and if you have no cards in your hand, you draw a card. This deck does tend to vomit its hand out onto the board. We're not paying mana for almost any of these songs, and the rest of the deck is pretty cheap, so Beast Mirror allows us to keep up in the mid to late games against the other grindier decks and against the aggro decks. We resolve a Grab Your Sword, we're good to go. You resolve a Whole New World, you're good to go. The Beast Mirror in here is one of the really big reasons why we're able to keep up on draw power, so we only have to play 3 A Whole New World. And since Beast Mirror is inkable, I really like this trade. And next up, we've got 3 Smash. Strength of Raging Fire is incredibly strong at dealing with your opponent's threats. It is a song, so you can sing it as early as turn 2 in this deck, which is really, really nice. However, sometimes you don't get your early singers and you just need to kill something, namely the Big Queen and the Big Queen of Hearts. Smash deals 3 damage to either of them and just takes them out of the game. Opponent's Aerials, when you want to be saving this for some of their bigger threats, Smash takes care of Aerial. Smash takes care of any of the small things, any of the Merlins, including the Goat Merlin and the Human Merlin, or the Arthur, I should say. Smash takes care of any of the snake, either the snake mim or the fox mim. Smash just really, really allows you to clean up some boards that would otherwise be a little bit annoying. The 3 damage allows you to put damage on your opponent's Tiana, so you can get the extra kill in, the extra damage to kill in with your Cinderella, or put damage on your opponent's Cinderella so that you can try to win the Cinderella trade. It's a really, really nice card. It is inkable. It's not a song, which is why I'm really happy with the 4 and 3 ratio. I really like Smash. All right. Now, on to the characters. This is about half the deck. You can see we're playing a shit ton of songs. We're also playing a shit ton of characters. This deck is, I think, about 30% characters. Sorry, 50% characters. And to start it off with, we want to be able to have game against those control decks, since those are our worst matchups. We're starting with our Wishing Lilo. Still crazy from set 1 ink for the quest for 2, puts on pressure against control decks, against ramp decks, against decks that aren't playing steel. It's incredibly strong because we're also backing it up with not only Simba, which we know from set 1, but also the Prince from set 2. We have a lot of things that we want to be protecting in this deck, so our bodyguards are doing double duty throughout the further cards in the game. Simba being a 2/3 bodyguard allows it to come in and protect Lilo. It lives to an opponent's grab your sword, which is really important. Same thing with the Prince being a 1/3 with resist 1, which is incredible. Means it only takes 1 damage from grab your sword. The things that kill Simba sometimes don't kill Prince, like Smash. Now Gaston is still very annoying for your Prince, but assumedly Gaston's coming out earlier, we can smash that, we can shoot it, or it'll trade with our Simba. And the Prince quest for 2, which is also really, really nice, especially into those, specifically the control, the items, the blue ramp decks and the control decks. Being able to play Lilo, Simba, Prince, unless they're not getting to turn 7 for their Be Prepared. So they have to be on ramp, and if they're on ramp, you can just sit on these guys, and they're gonna lose the game to those guys alone once they do a Be Prepared, because they have to beat those. Then you can commit the rest of your hand, and you blow them out of the water. Speaking of other things that we're going to be protecting and how we're actually singing almost everything here is our 1 ink Cinderella. 1 ink Cinderella is a 1/2, only quest for 1, but has Singer 3. If you've been keeping track, she sings everything in the deck except for A Whole New World and Grab Your Sword. She'll sing Be Our Guest to get more value on turn 2 to allow you to follow up with a bodyguard after she's tapped to protect her. She'll allow you to sing a 0 to hero on turn 2 so that you can maybe play something down a little earlier than you shouldn't be able to. Play a Prince on turn 2, for instance, into certain matchups. She'll allow you to sing Strength of Raging Fire as early as turn 2. You play something else, shoot something for 2 damage for free. Love that. World's Greatest Criminal Mind. If your opponent's playing their big Cinderellas, your small Cinderella can kill it. And returning part of your world to loot back our bodyguards after they die, or our Lilo after they get shot, or our Ariels for more value. And obviously, we're not playing the small Cinderella without playing the big Cinderella. Big Cinderella is absolutely psychotic. If you've been even looking at the game in the past few weeks, once this, after Rise of the Floodborn came out, you know how insane this card is. Every deck in the game has to have an answer to her, or else you lose the game immediately. She has Shift 5, which pairs incredibly well with her 0 to hero that I'll go over in just a minute. She is 7 ink inkable, which means that if you draw her in the early game, you have too many of them, you just throw it down. Perfectly, love that. That's why we're able to play 4 copies. She's a 5/5, which is really good stats for a 7 drop anyways. Quest for 3, which is amazing. And she has resist 2. All by that, she is basically unkillable outside of anything that doesn't just straight kill her. Your opponent can return her to hand with something like Bounce, or just kill her with something like Dragonfire. There is answers for every color to be able to deal with her. However, some of them are more prevalent than others. And if you're playing against an opponent's deck who doesn't have a way to beat her, or doesn't have quick access to a way to beat her, she just quests every turn, and you gain 3 lore every turn, and you win the game that way. Or you punch your opponent's board every turn and take no damage because of the resist, and she kills 3, 4, 5, 6 cards by the time they deal with her. If they're just bouncing in her hand, she just comes back out. You're totally good. And the extra line of text that doesn't need to be on her, but says, whenever you play a song, this character may challenge ready characters this turn. That is insane. It fully checks your opponent's bells, your opponent's Alice's, your opponent's any of the stuff in the ramp deck, which is kind of one of your bad matchups, which is incredible that we have an archetype way to beat one of those decks. It cleans up your opponent's any ward guys that they have. They're on the Prince John, or any of the other annoying ward stuff that green and red like to be on. Cinderella just kills it. It's just incredible. You don't target their thing, so ward gets around that. You're just challenging them. You don't choose them for a card effect, so ward doesn't matter. Evasive can be a little annoying, but a lot of the evasive guys don't have a lot of health to make up for that, and that's where Strength of Raging Fire and Smash come in big. This Cinderella is absolutely incredible, and the entire reason to be playing this deck. Even if we didn't have that Cinderella, a lot of this deck would still be very playable. However, it would be nowhere near as strong as she is. She is very clearly the boss monster of this deck. She is just the best card in the entire deck. I would argue one of the best cards in the entire game right now. She's just absolutely incredible, and the entire deck is built around her, which is why we have a lot of these bodyguards to protect the small Cinderella. One incredible thing you can do, this happens not every hand, but enough that it's definitely worth mentioning. You play Cinderella on turn, so you ink something turn 1, play Cinderella. Then turn 2, typically we want to be playing a Simba, maybe we can sing something here, or any of the other 2-drops that are about to follow up. So turn 2, we have Cinderella and our 2-drop. Then on turn 3, we play our 3rd ink. our 2-drop will sing 0 to hero, allowing us to play the next card we play for 2 less, tap our 3 ink to play Big Cinderella on top of Little Cinderella immediately. Now, since she was not on the board when we played 0 to hero, she cannot attack our opponent's characters already. However, this is turn 3, she's almost unkillable, just quest her for 3. She still comes out, she can still start doing that. If they have something that's tapped down, you can just kill it with Cinderella right away. The specific ruling that allows her to only attack things when she sees the song get played did come down pretty recently. However, I'm not gonna lie, I think I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've actually played 0 to hero to put her down that early and then actually wanted to attack with something. Most of the time, in the mid-game, you can shift her down, then play another song afterwards. Or you sing 0 to hero, put her down, and have somebody else, like the Prince, or maybe a second Cinderella or Ariel, sing something else anyways, and she attacks anyways. It doesn't even matter. This Cinderella is absolutely incredible. The ability to play her on turn 3 is insane. That beats Dragonfire. If you play this on turn 3, you quest with it 3 times before they can Dragonfire it, you've gained 9 lore. They're not winning that game anyways, especially if you can follow up with a Lilo afterwards, get the Prince on the board, or some of our other big questers like the Huntsman. The Huntsman is in this deck mostly because I needed another 2-drop that quested for 2 that didn't suck ass, and that's the Huntsman. However, after actually playing the Huntsman, this card is really, really good. The ability to, whenever it quests, you can draw a card and then discard a card, so it acts like the small Simba or the other Cinderella. That's where this card took the other Cinderella's place, actually. I found myself not needing the name as much, because sometimes you're just going to hardcast this, and that's totally fine. Cheap it out with 0 to hero. Maybe you don't necessarily need to shift it. But since we're playing so many uninkable cards in here, the ability to draw and discard allows us to dig deeper into our deck to find our more inkable cards, or discard our uninkable cards if we're sitting on them. Keep in mind, we can always discard a big Cinderella or something like that because part of your world is able to grab it back later, which is really, really nice. Another reason why part of your world is definitely a very meaningful include in this deck. This deck also acts a little bit like a toolbox deck, where you will always be able to answer whatever your opponent is doing as long as you draw the right card or the right combination of cards. The Huntsman allows you to help solve that problem. There are so many times where I don't have the answer to my opponent's board in hand and there's nothing I can do to beat it. I quest the Huntsman, I draw a card, and now I've won the game, because either I draw Grab Your Sword to wipe their whole board, I grab Strength of a Raging Fire to blow up their big guy, I grab Ariel, I play Ariel, she finds a song, I'm in the game, I grab a whole new world, I sing a whole new world, I have a whole new hand, and I can blow up their board. The ability for Huntsman to also keep drawing you deeper and deeper into your deck allows us to, again, only play 3 a whole new world, since we do have our card draw engine from Huntsman. Also synergizes very well with our bodyguards like Simba and the Prince. Lilo turn 1, Huntsman turn 2, Prince turn 3. If your opponent doesn't play anything that forces a Simba turn 2, this gets you 2 lore every single time you quest with one of them. Bodyguard protects both of these guys. His resist makes him very hard to kill unless your opponent's on steel, and the Huntsman allowing you to just find so much card draw that by the time they do remove it, it doesn't matter, you have your perfect hand. The Huntsman really, really puts in a lot of work in this deck, and I think he's currently being a little underrated by the general public. Keep an eye on Huntsman, he's very, very strong. Following up the Huntsman with another 2-drop here, we've got Robin Hood. This card is insane, and the only reason I'm not running 4 of it is because it's uninkable. It is 2 ink uninkable for a 1/3. It says tap, deal 1 damage to chosen character. It says that it quests for 1. I don't think I've ever used it to quest for 1 unless my opponent has no cards on board. Every single time you're tapping him to deal 1 damage to an opponent, solve some of your math from Smash, allows you to grab your sword to kill things with 3 health, allows you to just push through some of those extra little bits of damage. It basically acts as a second character for Strength of a Raging Fire. The Robin Hood, it checks your opponent's aggro decks, shooting Lilos or Maleficents or Pinocchios. It just, before they even quest, it just allows you to kill your opponent's things before they even start questing. This, combined with the other removal package in the deck with Cinderella, Smash, Grab Your Sword, and Strength of a Raging Fire, there are so many games where my opponent has been at 17 or 18 lore for 5 or 6 turns in a row. They're still playing cards, they just all die before they can quest with them. There's nothing they can do, they just keep getting their shit blown up, and then by the time they have no cards on board, I'm questing for 3, I'm questing for 2, I'm questing for 2 there, I'm questing for 2 with Lilo, I'm questing for a million in 1 turn. And you can't stop me because you have no board, and you've had no board for 3 turns, and now I've won the game off of questing for 11 twice in a row. Following up our Robin Hood, we've got the ever lovely, the ever-present Ariel Spectacular Singer, a 3 ink inkable 2/3, quest for 1. Sometimes we're questing with her, though most of the time we're singing with her. She does have Singer 5, so she allows us to play our Grab Your Swords and Whole New Worlds just that early. And when you play her, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, grab a song, and put it into your hand. We are playing, I believe this is 24 songs? Last time I counted. These numbers might have changed, but they're on screen right now. There is a lot of songs in this deck. You will whiff sometimes, admittedly, but that's what Part of Your World is for. That's what Be Our Guest is for. We can keep finding our aerials later on in the game when our deck size is a lot lower. Sometimes the Huntsman will just draw us into a song anyways. We've got answers to be able to deal with our opponent's board, no matter what the situation. You'll play an aerial, you'll look for a whole new world. Oh, look, there it is. Play a whole new world, grab your next card, good to go. The aerial is just absolutely incredible. Probably one of the strongest cards in the deck. The Cinderella is incredibly flashy. The aerial is the heart and soul of the deck. Being able to sing your 5 drops as early as turn 4 really puts the pressure on the opponent. You play an aerial, you can do anything. They don't want to commit that their entire hand because it could die to grab your sword. They don't want to hold on to their hand because it could die to a whole new world. Your opponent's just in a really, really bad position. Even if you don't have these in hand, you can shoot their biggest guy with World's Greatest Criminal Mind. You can shoot some of their smaller guys with Strength of Raging Fire. You can cheat out something really big. You can keep digging for more answers. The song's utility in this deck really puts in a lot of pressure to your opponent to force them to act, and then once they act, you can react and you can kill all their stuff. And then rounding out the deck, we've got 3 Surfer Stitch. I wasn't originally playing this card, and then I started playtesting it, and holy shit, this card is incredible. We're playing so many characters already that we're on the 0 to Hero package. We're playing a bunch of guys for Be Our Guest. Might as well be on this Stitch. The problem with the Stitch is that he's 7 ink. However, we've got 0 to Hero. No, he's not. He's never 7 ink. He's often 3 or 4. There was one game I played him for 0 ink and then drew 2 cards because obviously I have more than 2 characters on the board. Another really important thing about this Stitch is that he does something right when he enters the battlefield, which means in your bad matchups, which is your control decks and to an extent your opponent's ramp decks, doesn't matter if they Dragon's Fire this guy because he's already hit the board, he's already drawn you 2 cards. If they're spending their 1 Dragon's Fire on him, you're up 2 cards. And if they don't spend their Dragon's Fire on him, he quests for 2 and is pretty hard to kill, being a 4/8. He acts as a backup attacker next to the Cinderella and your opponent's really big things, and he's really hard to kill with his massive booty of 8 health. That's the deck. This is Steel, Amber, Cinderella songs. This deck is absolutely incredible. If you've been paying attention to the wider metagame, this deck is definitely on your radar. This is my preferred way to build this deck. As I've been saying, this is a toolbox deck where you can kind of switch in and out some of the different tools that you have in your toolbox to be able to deal with your opponent's board at will. Some people are playing the Queen package. I found it a little too volatile, so I didn't want to play it. Some people aren't playing the Huntsman. I think they're sleeping on it. Some people aren't on Surfer Stitch or aren't on Smash because they think that's fine, or are on Smash and not on the song. I think a lot of people aren't on Beast Mirror, but I think it's a really good wider metagame call. There's a lot of reasons why I'm playing a lot of the cards that I am, and to be fair, I'm getting rewarded for it. I've been 3-0ing a lot of our local leagues. We went to a win-a-box tournament a couple weeks ago, and I went 4-1 in that event, only losing to a mirror match, and that was before I put in World's Greatest Criminal Mind, so, you know, hopefully we won't be losing to that anymore. She had World's Greatest Criminal Mind in her deck. This deck is just really strong. Even its bad matchups are not unlosable. You have no unlosable matchups. You have some auto-win matchups, which we love to see. And if you're a confident pilot, if you know what you're doing, if you know what your outs are, and you know how to mulligan, specifically, mulligans with this deck are very important, then you can beat almost any deck. You at least have the opportunity to beat any deck on the market. If you like this deck, if you like Cinderella, just like myself, you can pick this deck up. We've got plenty of singles on our online store and in-store in person. If you're down near Tucson, Arizona, swing by our shop, check out our links in the description below, and that'll take you to our online stores. And if you like more Lorcana content, don't worry, we've got plenty more coming to you. We've got local legend videos, we've got some more deck guides, and we've got some gameplay coming to you. Keep your eyes here on the channel for plenty more Lorcana content coming throughout the entire end of this year and into the new year as well. With that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.